Oops. My name is Scott Sandler. I'm from Gavilan College. And, I was just going through my old emails, and it seems that it's been since March of 2010 that's when I went to my first 3CSN event. Um, and so I've been, in some ways, connected to 3CSN for about 11 years. And it's given me so much academically and personally. I've gained so many thought partners from across the state through 3CSN. So I'm just really grateful for everything that 3CSN does. And I hope that we continue to support it and that it continues to thrive, especially during this time of shelter in place and this pandemic. And really want to thank Lauren and Nika and Keelan for all of their support. So I think we're going to just jump right in. Today we're going to be talking about habits of mind, and it's kind of a weighty topic, and we only have about 57 minutes to go through this. But here's the plan: is that we're going to kind of give you an introductory look at habits of mind as it was introduced about 25 years ago from Arthur Costa and Ben Akalik. We're going to look at their 16 habits of mind, just kind of put it out into the air. And then we're going to be doing some interactive work around habits of mind. And then the last 20 to 25 minutes, we're going to be focusing on habits of mind, specifically with remote learning and Zoom in mind. So that's kind of the goals for today. So I'm going to go refer to that shared document that's in the chat. And I'm going to share my screen right now and go to that document. So the 16 habits of mind, and I do want to say, like, this is not the Bible of habits of mind. You try to make the habits of mind work for your campus. So like at Gavilan, where I teach, one of our habits of mind had to do with self-advocacy. It was speak for yourself to get what you need. In East LA, they had a habit of mind in terms of self-care and just well-being and physical exercise and those kinds of things. And so, this is just a jumping off point. We're not going to be able to read through all the 16, but I am going to just kind of go through them and give an overview. The first one is persisting, seeing something through to the end, working towards completion, and we'll be talking a little bit more about persisting. Managing impulsivity, slowing down, taking time to think things through before jumping into action, listening with understanding and empathy. So especially now during this time of this pandemic, just making sure that you are taking time to understand what people are going through and trying to put yourself in their position and just kind of listen without judgment. Thinking flexibly, trying to be adaptive. If someone is struggling, trying to help them see things through another way. Thinking about your own thinking, so a lot around metacognition and habits of mind, trying to be aware of what you're going through, what you are experiencing, what you are feeling, striving for accuracy. And again, you'll have this sheet in front of you that we put in the chat. And on every slide, I do have these 16 so we don't lose sight of them. Questioning and problem posing. So, probing, trying to get clarification, and the idea that a good question will lead to other good questions. Applying past knowledge to new situations. Nobody comes into a situation as a blank slate, and we are able to bring with us our own experiences, our own worlds to what it is that we are currently experiencing. Thinking and communicating with clarity and precision, gathering data through all the senses. This is one that I use a lot in my classes. I talk about proofreading and I say, one method of proofreading is to read out loud because sometimes your ears will hear something that your eyes overlook. So just trying to gather data through all your senses, creating, imagining, and innovating, responding with wonderment and awe. And I love what my friends at Los Medanos does. Um, my friend Paulo Gunder has a habit of mind seeking out moments of wonder and awe, wonderment and awe, looking for those moments, taking responsible risks, finding humor, thinking interdependently, and remaining open to continuous learning. So those were the 16 habits of mind from Costa and Kallick. Again, they're not the only habits of mind, but it is a jumping off point. And so from here, I want to go into a little slideshow for you, and we're going to be talking about this, and I'm going to ask you guys to jump in. So, when you want to say something, feel free to unmute yourself. But first, I thought, at least just for a few minutes, we could introduce ourselves, at least just a few people, just to get the idea, to introduce ourselves by a habit of mind that we try to practice, something we mindfully try to work upon, mindfully try to improve. And so I'm going to introduce myself, and I'm going to say, hello, I am managing impulsivity. And the reason why I said managing impulsivity is because I'm really, really trying to practice slowing down when sending out an email, trying not to send out an email when I'm feeling agitated. There's a phrase that says, when in doubt of what is right, consult your pillow overnight. So just trying to take a step back. And I think I'm doing that well, but I'm trying to continue to work on that. So if anybody else, you look at the 16 there in front of you, but is there one thing that you feel like you do well, or something that you're working on? And to introduce yourself to the group with that habit in mind.
Hey, Scott.
Hi, Lauren.
I'm Lauren. And for a while now, I've really been leaning into responding with wonderment and awe. And I think part of it is because, we're having these really tough conversations oftentimes on our campuses. And I think leading with curiosity and leading with some awe can help diffuse some of the really difficult conversations, particularly when we're not in agreement.
Thank you so much. Does anybody else want to jump in, introduce yourself with your habit of mind?
Hi, my name is Kendrick Scott. How are you?
Hi, Kendrick. Good. How are you?
My habits of mind is to manage impulsivity, very similar to yours. Emotions do run high, especially if you're staying at home and quarantining, and sometimes that you have to think before you send out that email, because sometimes that undo button,
right.
regret. Particularly towards students that you've kind of like already responded to the same answer over and over again, and you feel like telling, just look at the syllabus, just look at the syllabus, just look at the syllabus. And even though you placed it in multiple areas, the syllabus has been emailed, Canvas message, and put in the announcements and put it in the modules. And you're still asking me that same question of when is the exam, or how do I do this, or how do I do that?
Right.
So it takes a lot of patience. And as a first-time online instructor, I'm finding that I have to be more patient.
Good.
Sorry for the long intro.
Oh, no, don't be sorry at all. But that's like what habits of mine are about. Like when you feel like you're at an impasse, like I keep giving them directions, just look in the syllabus. This is like when I'm at an impasse, what are these kind of thinking dispositions or problem solving strategies that I can kind of lean into? And that's what these habits of mine are about. Does somebody else, let's grab one more person.
I'll jump in if no one wants to. Hello, everyone. My name is Emily Vaughn. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Emily.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I was looking forward to this particular session that you're presenting. So my habit of mine is number 6, thinking and communicating with clarity and precision. But I'm going to rephrase that. I have been striving, and I think this will be a lifelong goal, is to be impeccable with my words, because I believe that words carry power. Words can incite or unite. Words can anger or appease. And this is very much aligned with number 2, managing impulsivity. So if I can be impeccable and clear and concise and with my words, I think I can be, then I am powerful in that sense. And I just want to end with a quote that I learned from my dear friend who is a Japanese speaker, and there's this author who said, in Japanese, there's a line that says, "Words have a soul." And so when we utter something, when we say something, we actually give power and breath and spirit to that thought, and we release it outward. So it's so critical that I am impeccable with my words, and that's my goal in terms of habits of mind.
Emily, it's really great to see you, and thank you so much for your thoughtfulness. I'm going to hold on to that idea that words have a soul, and I appreciate you, Kendrick, and Lauren. So I want to go to the next screen. So I want to put this within a specific context. So I'm going to talk with you about me, and I am an identical twin, and you know, with a lot of identical twins, you get categorized. Like he's the very verbal twin, he's the very shy twin, he's this twin, he's that twin. So this idea of being the math twin, that was not me. I was not the math twin, and that was made well known. And in fact, when we were kids, I was able to take my twin brother's spelling bees, and he sat in and took some of my math quizzes because we were that identical. But, I had to learn how to do math. And so, 1/8 plus 3/8, 4/8, 1/2, this wasn't so hard. Like, I've mastered it, easy. Then you get to something like 1/2 plus 3/8. Okay, so that's a little bit tougher, but I did learn, you turn them both, the bottom number into 8s, and I was able to do it. It was an additional step, but I was able to do it. But then I would get to word problems. And here's a word problem. Planet X is 7/10 of a light year away from Earth. Planet Y is 1/2 of a light year away from Earth. How much farther away is planet X? And immediately I said, I'm done. Nope, I'm not even going to spend time with this, because that's too, it was just, I felt frazzled looking at this word problem or word problems like this. So I guess my question is, looking at these habits of mind that you have in front of you, which one of these might we lean into to support this young version of Scott who was struggling with with these word problems? And again, just feel free to unmute yourself and to share your thoughts. So here I've hit an impasse, right? I come across a word problem and I'm ready to throw the book across the room. What will help me? What will help me with persistence?
I could see using the think flexibly habit of mind.
Yeah, for sure. Can you think about how I would do that?
Well, kind of run into a roadblock with one strategy of trying to think about it from multiple entry points and seeing if there's kind of an aha moment that might come from trying to think of it in different ways.
Yeah, is there another approach that I could take? Is there another way of looking at this and trying to think about it in a different way? Good.
Maybe maybe think about your thinking, the metacognition to the math problem. Just to add to whoever said think flexibly, I think maybe those two would go hand in hand. Just my opinion. Where you're thinking
Absolutely.
flexibly and then thinking about the thinking.
Absolutely. And I think the thinking about the thinking can surface things that, if my math teacher were there, might not even be aware as an issue. So for me, well, what's a light year? Like, I know I should know what a light year is. And now I feel dumb that I don't even know what a light year is. And maybe I'm feeling dumb on multiple levels. I can't do this problem. I don't know what a light year is. So thinking flexibly could be, okay, well, let's, present this in a different way. Let's forget about light years for a moment. So just if you can help me with thinking about my thinking, you might be able to surface some of the challenges that I'm having. Anybody else want to jump in?
I just want to dovetail what you just said, Scott, and what Cynthia and Kendrick said. What struck me when you said, "Oh, I feel dumb." So I think, and this is reflective for many of our students when whether it's writing or math or biology, that there is learning. The affective factors are so intertwined with the learning process that that we help students surface their feelings. Like when you said, I feel dumb. That is a part of metacognition, and the affective factors, the emotional factors of learn that when we learn is critical. And so if we can identify that and then address it through persistence, through managing impulsivity, because you said your first inclination is says, I'm done, right?
Yeah. I think what you're saying is so important. Like, we talk about student learning outcomes. Well, then we need to think about, well, what practices will help students meet that learning outcomes? But then you have to say, what habits of mind that do we need to tend to, which will help people persist in these practices that's connected to those learning outcomes. So, when we can't really think about learning outcomes without, in some ways, thinking about how do we tend to the affective domain to help students get to that learning outcome. Okay, let's do one last one if anybody else wants to say anything. Any thoughts before we move on to the next slide?
I was just thinking about thinking interdependently. I think students are really like helping each other out a lot right now in various ways. I have heard things like some of my students, like one of the students mentioned that the chat has been disabled for them to be able to chat with each other or even get each other's information. So they've been really struggling because they're taking these hard STEM classes and they don't have any way to reach each other. So one day the faculty got disconnected and they took that time to create their groups. Mm-hmm. So, we want to think about also supporting that. So I think that interdependent thinking, like, I don't have to do this by myself, is a really important one.
I love that, Keelan. Like, we're not alone. We don't have to do this by ourselves. We don't have to suffer in silence. And, we have these support services for our students, and the teacher's part of the support team, the librarian. If there's a tutor, that's part of the support team. But, what's really most important is that peer support, right? Is being able to reach out to one another, which can sometimes be difficult in remote learning, right? Is to reach out to our peers. So we might think about, how do we tend to thinking interdependently and support students in doing that, especially in a time of remote learning and Zoom, where after the class, people oftentimes are not doing that interdependent work that you're talking about. Okay, so I'm going to move to the next, and I apologize. I see there's a lot in the chat, but I can't read the chat while I'm on this PowerPoint, but I'll look at it in a little moment. Oops. So my slide is not moving, so hold on one second. Oh, I seem to have frozen. Hold on, please. Oh, so this is what I want to get to is something from my friend Miguel Powers from Fullerton College. He talks a lot about persistence with growth mindset. And he says it's not enough, we have this habit of mind that says persistence. It's not enough just to say, okay, try harder, right? I'm stuck with that math problem. Okay, just try harder. Okay, well, at some point, try harder has diminishing returns and can actually be harmful if that's all we're saying. So when we think about persistence, it's important to remember that we're talking about effort along with developing strategies, along with support. And that's what will help us to reach success. So I did want to mention that. It's not enough just to say, try harder. So of course, habits of mind, some of the things we've been talking about. It is thinking about problem-solving behaviors, thinking dispositions that if we tend to these, it can lead to more productive outcomes. And it's not just for the students, it's for everybody on campus, right? For faculty, staff, administration, managers, anyone that you can think of would benefit from habits of mind and putting those into practice. And I think what's most important when we're talking about habits of mind, whether you're focusing on some of those 16 from Costa and Calic or focusing on a different habit of mind, the important thing is to make it visible. Brene Brown has a book called Dare to Lead, and she says, we can't live into our values if we can't name them. So like when we see that a habit of mind is being practiced, name it. And again, it doesn't just have to be in a classroom. So I was in a meeting, and it was a contentious meeting, and the facilitator was doing such a great job. And I stopped just to say, you are doing such a wonderful job of listening with empathy and understanding and calling that out when it's happening. And the more that we can call it out, the more we can say, these are things that we value. These are habits that we value. And these are habits we want to kind of build upon. And so it's an opportunity to value our students and colleagues and taking time to appreciate when these habits are taking place, making them visible. So I want to kind of shift gears now, and I want to look at different scenarios. And so these scenarios are on your Google Doc. And what I want to do is I want to go through these 5 scenarios, and then I want to put you into breakout rooms, or Keelan's going to help me put you into breakout rooms. And you're going to just, as a group say, let's pick one of these scenarios that kind of speaks to us that we want to think about with habits of mind. In the Google Doc, if you want, you can use it as a note taker, or if it feels more comfortable, you could do it in another way. But then after we come back from the breakout room, we're going to share out. So you'll see if this feels familiar for some of you. So here's the first one, and this one is for a synchronous class. So I was trying to think about scenarios for both synchronous teaching and asynchronous teaching. In my class, only a handful of students use their cameras. Every class session, I see a sea of black screens. This impacts my ability to connect with my students. In my face-to-face classes, I've always been able to respond to student body language. I can see where they're confused or have something they'd like to say. Students are able to rely on one another in class to get clarifications. This goes back to that thinking interdependently. I worry about how Zoom teaching impacts my ability to teach and to build classroom community. That's one scenario. Oops. Scenario 2. During this pandemic, I realized that there are hurdles for students to attend synchronous classes and optional sessions. I tell students not to worry because I'm going to be recording these sessions, which will help them to catch up. I've noticed, though, that students are less likely to participate or ask questions when they know that their contributions are being archived. I also worry that when I record the sessions, fewer students are likely to attend. I'm concerned about the tension between giving students the ability to access synchronous sessions while at the same time wanting to protect the privacy and needs of students who are attending during the scheduled time. Do these scenarios feel familiar to some of you? Okay. Scenario 3.
Yes.
Yeah, scenario 3. My students are not turning things in on time. Now, this could be for either synchronous or asynchronous. It could be for both. I know that students are going through so much during this time, and I want to be sure to keep them in class. My one student has emailed me to tell me that he has to work more hours because another worker came down with COVID. Another student says that he's having Wi-Fi problems. I'm accommodating them, but now more are coming forward to tell me that they can't get work in on time. I want to support all of them, but I also worry about the need to keep some due dates and standards in place. That's scenario 3. Scenario 4. This comes from a student perspective. I'm completely unmotivated. My teacher puts us out in breakout rooms, and many of those who I have been partnered with are quiet or don't participate. Many of the conversations I have are done through discussion boards, and I can't help but feeling that so much is missing. I don't look forward to class. I'm tired of staring at the screen. I'm bored and frustrated. I'm feeling depleted, and I'm wondering whether or not to drop the class. So we can think about habits of mind with counseling in mind as well in this one. Scenario number 5, and this is going to be the last scenario. This is from a student point of view with an asynchronous class. I'm having trouble focusing. There are too many distractions at home. I have 2 elementary school kids who are taking online classes, and I have to make sure that everyone is set up through Zoom. It is hard for me to focus on my class while focusing on my kids at the same time. I have to ensure that my kids understand and complete their assignments before I can even think about what I have to do. So those are the 5 scenarios. And so what I want to do is, and those scenarios are in the Google Doc, and maybe we can put that Google Doc back in the chat. What I want to do is to have you back, to put you into breakout rooms for just about 10 minutes. It's 10:31 right now. We're going to be in a breakout room for 10 minutes. Think about this situation, and then also think about it with habits of mind. Like which ones might you lean into? Which ones might help support the teacher, the student, anyone in this who you think is impacted by this scenario. And then at the end of 10 minutes, we'll just come in and we'll debrief for the last 15, 20 minutes. Does that sound good to everybody? Okay.